Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Buds and Blue Jays. I'm your host, Jesse Burrell, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Riley McConnell. Riley, how are you, man?
Good today, Jesse. A lot of rain happening right now. It's supposed to freeze overnight. I don't plan on going anywhere, just staying nice and hunkered in.
Yeah, it's really cold and crappy outside, and in here we're dreaming of summer nights at the ballpark, nice warm sun, all that exciting stuff. Can't wait for it to finally happen here.
Yeah, I really can't wait too. I'm getting awfully frustrated, I'll tell you, Jesse.
Today on the show, we're going to open up the time machine a little bit, and we're going to go over some of the great Toronto Blue Jays teams in the past, cover some of our favorite eras, some of our favorite teams, some of our favorite players. We're also going to throw in some Would You Rather Blue Jays edition, and we're also going to do some trivia as well. All the staples you're getting used to on this show. But as you mentioned, you just got a little frustrated about the labor talks and all that stuff there. We did have MLB and MLBPA meet again today, but their meeting only lasted 15 minutes long today. And Riley, I want to throw things to you. What have you done in your life that's lasted at least 15 minutes?
Well, today, for instance, I was sitting on something white and round, for about that time, not getting into excruciating details, but yeah, that's it's not, I wouldn't even call that a meeting. That's a hello or a goodbye.
It's one of those things in corporate. They said, this could have been an email. What are we even doing here? It's basically, that meeting was just as long as Mike Napoli's Blue Jays tenure in here really quick, and is also probably not even as long as a typical Rafael Dolis inning on the mound. So take with that what you will. The MLB and MLBPA are probably going to meet again here sometime soon. We'll talk about it when they do, but let's move on to something a little more positive, shall we?
Sounds good to be, man. I'm just a headache all the time with that. I can't even, I know we're trying to be more, into Twitter and everything like that, but it's awfully hard when all I'm reading is just negative things. So hopefully today's episode will bring me up, talk about stuff I like.
Yeah. While we anxiously await what baseball looks like in the future, we will go back in time and we're going to remember some guys and talk about some Blue Jays teams in the past. Now, both note, Riley, you and I are both in our mid to late 20s here, so we were only really alive for the team probably 2000 eras on, but I know I've done a little bit of research. I've watched all the World Series tapes. I know you've have dove deep into the Blue Jays history books, so I'm excited to see what we can come up with. And let's just jump right into it. Let's travel back in time. Let's go to a cold April morning at Exhibition Stadium in Toronto in 1977. The Toronto Blue Jays were just an expansion team. They got in there, and they played their first game April 7th in a very cold and snowy Exhibition Stadium, where I think the Blue Jays won that game. Doug Alt hit 2 home runs, and just like that, the Blue Jays were in flight, as Jerry Howard would say. Tell me a little bit more about that team.
Well, start off 100% winning percentage. Hey, 1-0.
Let's go.
Sadly, Jesse, the first few years in Toronto, I should say more than a few, there's a handful of years, we did extremely poor. Being a new team to the MLB, being an expansion team, we did not have the cream of the crop players at the time,
which is typical.
Which is how it goes. You got to start at the bottom and build your way up. We currently we have 3,506 wins and 3,557 losses. I know that's hard to comprehend. Jesse might write something on the board, but a 49.6 winning percentage. If you round that up, that's
wins, eh?
It's close though. I'm sure if you looked at a lot of teams, we'd have probably one of the closest records. We come close a lot of years. First 3 years were the worst though. 54 and 107 in 1977, 1978, 59 and 102 losses. In a 79, 53 wins and 109 losses. So comparatively, those are going to get you in today's MLB 28th to 30th, and most years probably last place 30th.
I mean, that's what to expect, right? You don't really have any big impact players. You don't really have a farm system. The only players you're taking from the expansion draft are players that other teams kind of, they didn't really want, or they're just league average players, so it's tough to build a winning team from that. So
that's fair. Out of that draft, though, we did get longtime catcher Ernie Witt.
Yeah.
He was the backstop for the Jays forever. I don't have his start and finish dates, but trust me when I say this guy took his more than his fair share of work behind the plate for a decade plus for the Toronto Blue Jays. And also, despite those poor 3 seasons, we did end up drafting Dave Steve,
Dave Steve,
and Alfredo Griffin, who was of what year? What year, Jesse?
He was Rookie of the Year in 1979. So kind of a bright spot for the early Jays there, having this young kid go up and take the league by storm. So
it's always nice to have something like that, kind of a light spot in a dark time. It's in 1981. We got to see the premier outfield start their major league careers, and that'd be Lloyd Mosby, George Bell, and Jesse Barfield. For those of you who don't know, you should know who they are. If you're a new Jays fan, that's fine. Basically, these guys all came up at the same time through the Jays organization, and they were the outfield for the 1980s for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Right, like picture this
power,
core.
speed, everything.
Yeah, picture this core a lot like Vlad and Bo and Biggio and stuff are now. This was what they were back in the early 1980s. These were the guys who first came up, the first little prospects that the Blue Jays had grown, that they were bringing up to the major league. So these would have been the guys that Jays fans would have learned from a very early on in their franchise and followed their careers all the way up. So in 81, they were finally here.
Yeah, and I'm sure the fans back then, they could be a version of you and I back then in the early 80s, kind of pining on these guys like we do currently, Bo and Cav and Vlad and whoever else. So you grow them a little bit, we still struggle through our, next couple seasons. I think you said 1983 was our first winning season.
So 1982, let's not move too far ahead there. We got a new manager. Bobby Cox took over as manager of the team. And it was in the 82 season, I really found that the Jays started actually to progress here. They didn't get a winning season. They finished 78 and 84, but their pitching staff started to kind of show up, as well as that young outfield, like you mentioned, Lloyd Mosby and Jesse Barfield. Dave Steve was kind of turning into his own and becoming a very good pitcher there. Jim Clancy might be a name you remember. Luis Leal, who, if you look actually at a lot of Blue Jays leaderboards, he's up there for wins and innings pitched. So kind of guy like that. So 82 was they didn't have a winning season, but they kind of started to progress and look a little better.
Hey, that's you show some bright spots, like still a young team. Like, I mean, we haven't touched on the ages of anyone. Obviously, the majority of these players are very young. Steve included. They had their outfield that was extremely young. Like, it's kind of the inexperience in baseball. It's an older man's game for the most part. Veterans sticking around, especially at this time. So hadn't built up the experience just quite yet. Don't need an excuse for that team in that era, but I'll say, could have been a lack of experience.
Probably, almost definitely, right? There was probably a few little veterans sprinkled in here. Willie Upshaw played first base for that team, and he was the first Blue Jay to have 100 RBIs in a season. So there's a little fact for you.
Never have known.
So bright spots are slowly creeping into this Blue Jays team. Let's move ahead to next year, 1983. What do you got?
1983? 1983, we have our first winning year, man.
Sure do, yep.
It's when things finally start to come together. I believe at this time we've acquired Tony Fernandez. He's still young and hasn't played. I think he's kind of in our whatever AAA. He might even be a bench player at that point. Same with Jimmy Key, one of the best left-handed pitchers of the era.
This is when the Jays were even making a bigger breakthrough. They were actually leading the AL East for most of the summer, including at the All-Star break, but they kind of had a second half slump in August and September. In the end of that year, they finished with a winning record, their first one in franchise history, at 89 and 73. But in those days, it was only good enough for fourth place, 9 games behind the eventual World Series champions, Baltimore Orioles. So good little run for the Jays in 83. That outfield core of Lloyd Mosby, Jesse Barfield, and all them they got a little better. They're getting later into their careers. You could really have something you could hope for and dream of summer in Blue Jays baseball there. Yeah,
and honestly, we're only in 83. They get better. Spoiler alert, those guys get better. This team gets better.
Yeah. And
it's funny, Jesse, just thinking of this now, it's very comparative to the guys we have now and how this is going to work out possible, different play on. Maybe we could even see a 100-win season because the next big season would be 1985, where we won 99 games and lost 62. Now, for those of you who are good at math or know how many games there are in a regular MLB season, we're missing a game in there. And Jesse and I, a little late to the research, but something happened. So, you know, either a rain date that didn't get finished, something like that.
That's my best guess. Yeah, there was a rain out or something scheduled late in the year, but they decided just to not play that game because it wouldn't have mattered in terms of seeding or draft picks or anything. So they just scrapped it. We do see that occasionally from time to time. Yeah. I remember, I think in 2014 or 15, the Cubs and Rockies just didn't play a game because it had no impact on the standings or anything. So they just scrapped it.
But just 99 and 62. That's an important game. We have 3 100-loss seasons or more than 100-loss seasons. We don't have any 100-win seasons. That should have been it.
You know, right? You're right. Now I'm mad. Now we got to solve this. Figure out what happened to that missing game.
Go
back to 85 and see if we can.
I'm baseball reference. I'm going back to the 85 season after this is done. I'll let you know Friday morning on Twitter what I find out.
There you go. Perfect.
Because it is, you know, that's the shoulda coulda been year. We ended up losing to the Royals in the AL Championship Series. That was the farthest we ever got at that point.
Yeah, and I don't know if you ever talk to a Blue Jays fan in the mid 80s, they will tell you that 85 team was special. And if you look at how the team lost that year, they were 2 games ahead of the New York Yankees in the regular season, and they went to face Kansas City in the ALCS, and they actually had a 3-1 game lead. Now, I know we joke in sports now, be like, oh, the series was 3-1, you blew a 3-1 lead. But the Jays did. They blew that lead. Kansas City won 3 in a row, and they end up winning the series in 7 games on their way to Kansas City's first World Series championship. So I'm just kind of sick of seeing Kansas City in the playoffs. I don't know about you, but
man, well, this is the Jays. It's all right. You know, tell me how you really feel. Oh, by the way, this is very impolite of me. Happy birthday, Jesse Burrow.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, man.
A little bit late. We'll kind of stop now. Jesse, you turn, I'm going to guess, 28 today.
29 and feeling fine, my man.
Ooh, and looking good too, sir. Looking good too.
Diet and exercise goes a long way.
Oh, yeah, for sure, man.
Kind of interruption about our little talk here. We'll kind of pause at 85 because it is my birthday today. I do want to give a shout out to 2 other Blue Jays who share a birthday with me today. And if you want to talk about remember some guys, how about these guys? So born today, February 17th, is Mike Macchia or Mike Macca. Does that name ring a bell to you?
Ooh, I'm not too sure, man. I've probably looked at 500 plus names today. Don't remember a Mike Macchia.
Okay, you'd be a Blue Jay sicko if you did, because he only had 8 at-bats for the team in 1980. And he didn't get a single hit. He went 0 for 8 in his 2 or 3 games he played. But hey, happy birthday, Mike. Shares a birthday with me. And then another guy who's a little bit more recent is Danny Farquhar.
Oh, lovely.
There's a name you might remember. Yep. His Blue Jays career was cut short. He only threw 2 innings pitched. He gave up 3 hits, 2 walks, and 1 strikeout in 2011 before we traded him. I think that was the Drew Hutchison trade. I could be wrong there.
He went to Detroit. He went in the AL Central. I remember Farquhar because he was one of the pitchers that picked up on the trash can hit and facing Houston. Mm-hmm. There's a video of it. Yep. He switched his signs mid at bat and struck. I don't know who was batting, but struck him out. And it was a guy was hanging it on 2 strikes for like 3 pitches, and you could clearly hear the bang. So good baseball IQ, Danny Farquhar.
Yeah, and hey, great birthday in my opinion. So
great birthday
for Blue Jays who were born today. So I share a birthday with those Blue Jays legends, as well as Michael Jordan. So happy birthday, Michael Jordan.
Happy birthday, MJ. I don't know who I share a birthday with. I really have never found someone who has the same birthday as me, October 15th. So if you know anybody, let me know or don't, because I don't really care.
We can look that up on your birthday. Hopefully the Jays are in a World Series by then. And then
sure, man. Yeah.
Like that. All right, let's flash back now. We continued at 85. The Blue Jays just had their first playoff appearance. After that loss and that devastating loss, Bobby Cox actually left the Blue Jays. He returned to his team, Atlanta Braves, and he became the general manager there. So the Jays were in need of a manager. And I guess the rest is history, as they say, when they decided to make Cito Gaston the next manager of the Toronto Blue Jays. As we get into the next big era of defining this team, the late 80s, early 90s. What do you got there, Riley?
This is, I even labeled it, this is the Cito era. I don't know what he has on the to impact players, but It's something, man. Cito gassed it, in my opinion. We both, I assume, got to watch him round 2 in Toronto, with, a team maybe less talented than he had his first trial through, but a special manager for sure. So the late 80s, before we even, get to the good stuff, because we still are dragging our feet through the mud in a sense. We just lost the ALCS, trying to put pieces back together, things like that. Still don't have the big names of the World Series. Obviously, at this point, we have Tony Fernandez and Kelly Gruber, Jimmy Key, Tom Hankey, Fred McGriff, Dwayne Ward, all guys that were on the World Series team. Still, those guys alone aren't going to win it. Pat Borders, can't forget Pat Borders, one of the most important catchers, if not the most important catcher, in Blue Jays
talk about
history.
him a little later on. We don't forget about Pat Borders.
I never forget Pat Borders, sir. I just want to stop here in 1988, though. I was today's years old. What do the kids say now? When I found this out, whatever. The 1988 Blue Jays is probably one of the most interesting teams, with guys that I love all over the board.
Okay.
All over the board. I'll just go through basically their starting 9, no DH, not really going to touch on things like that. Just the guys who played the most games per position. So Ernie Witt. Same guy. 12th year as the Blue Jays catcher. I think that's great. We had a 24-year-old Fred McGriff, who at this point was just starting to tear the cover off the ball.
He had 34 home runs that year.
34 home runs that year. Up the middle, we had Manuel Lee and Tony Fernandez, two quick guys, two sure-handed infielders. And then at the hot corner, my mom's favorite baseball player, Kelly Gruber.
He had the hair. The woman loved the hair.
Yeah, the Texas accent and the hair, I think. And then in the outfield, George Bell, Mosby, and Jesse Barfield, like in their prime age. They were all 28 years old. Just an interesting team, because guys were young. The elder statesman of the club, Ernie Witt, 36. Still a youthy team. I'm almost surprised looking at that, Jesse, that team couldn't have potentially been, if Barfield and Mosby had held on to their careers a little bit better, could that have been the 1992 World Series team instead?
Very well.
We don't know. Yeah. Things happen and stuff like that. That's fine. This is the Cito era here, and he's about to. This is going to change. This whole roster is going to change.
Yeah. Well, I lied to you. Jimmy Williams was actually the skipper for the start of the 86 year at least.
Cito came in 89. Don't worry. I got you.
Yeah. So I jumped the gun. I got excited about Cito. But you talked about that 88 season. That was also the season where Dave Stieb had back-to-back starts where he gave up a no-hitter with 2 out and 2 strikes in the 9th inning. So I have 8 complete games and 4 shutouts for him. Are you kidding? Dude, that's hard. Yeah, so it was literally back-to-back starts. So Dave Stieb was on another level that year. And you talked about that outfield. George Bell, the year prior in 87, that was the MVP season that he had. That was the first Blue Jays MVP in team history. And he was a monster. So the Blue Jays are starting to get these high-quality players at every position. They're coming off their playoff berries. The Blue Jays are winning. Things are good in the late 80s to be a Blue Jays fan. And things are going to get a lot better. I'm just going to jump right into 1991. Okay. With our newly founded ballpark in Toronto, Sky Dome. Yep. Retractable roof came in 89, so it was all starting. It was like a new era almost of Blue Jays baseball. Yep. And we hosted the All-Star game in 1991. Yep. To showcase our new field. Those 3 years were great for the Blue Jays. Also, we haven't hosted an All-Star game since, which, come on, 91's the last time. It's been over 30 years now. I know. I've done the math in my head too. It should be a rotation. Yeah, it should be the Blue Jays' time soon to get another All-Star game in here. Yeah, I mean, they had it at Coors Field, so But anyways, continue with your 81 season. What happened there? 91 season. That's what I meant, yeah. Oh, I know what you meant, Jesse. No worries. Numbers are going to get confused. It's not your fault because I'm all over the place too. I write like chicken scratch. I don't write stuff on a fancy computer. I'm old school that way.
91, welcome. Allrood and Leiter start their careers up, obviously part of, the next couple years. Allrood really coming into his own.
Mm-hmm.
But in 1991, it's funny, it's closer to the team in the late 80s than it is like the 92 and 93 year. Those are two completely different teams.
Right.
In 1990, I should just jump into 92 right now and tell you who we added to that roster.
Okay.
Roberto Alomar.
Yep. Hall of Famer. Roberto Alomar.
Hall of Famer. Candy Maldonado. Just love the name. And he was a steady Eddie outfielder.
Great baseball name.
Probably Kevin Pillar before Kevin Pillar, Devon White.
Mm-hmm. The guy who had the triple play but was never called.
Oh, it was, man. Gruber tagged him.
100%, yep.
Oh, my God. And that was Saunders, too. That shifty little. We added 40 or 41-year-old Dave Winfield.
Yep, another Hall of Famer.
And what a great I'm pretty sure it was the DH for us. I mean, you couldn't get a better DH. And then obviously the last position player being Joe Carter, we got in 92. And everybody on this channel has heard of Joe Carter, I'm sure. He's done some pretty cool things for the Jays. And for pitchers, notable names, Jack Morris.
Yep, just came over in that offseason.
Yep, Pat Hankin and Juan Guzman, who I really enjoyed, on the old World Series video. I really liked watching Juan Guzman pitch. He had he had a bright blue glove, great hair, great look to him. And he was so, I want to say reserved looking, but it almost was turned into a swagger almost. It was, right. And he had just great pitches, man, velocity control, just through the hard stuff. Loved watching him.
He was clutch for the team in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah. Comparable to the guys in the next year. So in 1992, let's go back. Let's work on the NL side of things. Obviously, we don't have video capabilities. One of the most exciting plays in the NL, the play at the plate. Do you know what I'm talking about? Barry Bonds about to throw the runner out, and he just gets in. I think it was Sid Bream.
That sounds right. It was in the NLCS, right? Where Atlanta beat Barry Bonds' Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Oh, that was an insane play, man.
Mm-hmm.
Insane play.
So the 92 regular season went well for the Jays. They finished with a record of 96 and 66, 4 games ahead of Milwaukee Brewers. A fun fact about that 92 season that I did not realize until I saw it is the Jays were never swept in a single game that whole year in 92. They won at least one game every series. They were the first team in the last 49 years for that to happen. So I said, wow, when I saw that.
That's a wow, man. That's a wow. That's
a 92 team.
So did they ever slump as a team? I don't think they didn't. If you win a game every, couple games, you're not slumping.
Yeah, they kind of did. They'd have a lot of series where they'd win one, lose two, win one, lose two. But,
better than being swept. I don't know, man. Yeah, they could slump, but better than being swept.
100%. You take the games you can, right?
Yeah.
So, they went into the playoffs in 1992. Things started to get good. They hadn't made the playoffs since 85. So the thoughts of, choking and stuff might go. And they ran into a very tough, was it Oakland that year?
Oh, the ALCS? Oh, yeah. Eckersley and his athletics.
Yes, it was Oakland that year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the pivotal game of the series was Game 4, and which a lot of Blue Jays fans would consider to be one of the most important games in Blue Jays history. The Blue Jays were losing 6-1 after 7 innings, and they made a huge comeback, and it was all capped off by Roberto Alomar's huge game-tying 2-run home run off Hall of Famer closer Dennis Eckersley in the top of the 9th inning. Yeah. The Jays took that momentum. They got a 7-6 win in 11 innings, and because of that, made their series a 3-1 lead, which they would eventually close out in 6 games. So if you're a Blue Jays guy, I know you've seen the Roberto Alomar home run. He hits it, the hands immediately go up. He's fist pumping around the bases. Huge moment in Blue Jays history, and one that every Blue Jays fan should know.
Who was the right fielder that he hit it over?
Oh God, Jose Canseco?
No. Oh, you don't remember the call then?
No, I don't remember the call.
Ruben Sierra.
Mm.
Just to throw that out there, because that call I can't remember exactly. I remember Sierra looking up, and this game is tied. Was the end of that call.
Makes sense. Chills just thinking about it.
Oh, me too, man. Absolutely. Great home run, man. Good for Alomar. What a season. What a playoff player.
So the Blue Jays then moved on. They faced Atlanta Braves in the World Series after their walk-off hit that you were just talking about there to get into Pittsburgh. The pivotal game in that series turned out to be Game 2, in which bench player Ed Sprague hit a ninth-inning two-run home run off Braves closer Jeff Reardon to give the Blue Jays a 5-4 lead, which ended up holding up. Game 3, Candy Maldonado hit a ninth-inning RBI hit, and Jimmy Key pitched a gem in Game 4, 7 1/3 innings pitched, and retired the last 15 batters he faced. So the Jays took a nice 3-1 lead on Atlanta. Atlanta comes back and wins Game 5. Game 6, they go down to Atlanta, Jays leading 3-2, and it was a very close game. Toronto was one strike away in the winning in the bottom of the ninth, but Otis Nixon hit a game-tying single off Tom Henke. So pressure's on again, right? It's 3-1. The Jays are thinking, oh no, could this happen? But no need to worry about it. It was Pat Borders, the Blue Jays catcher, who came through with a big hit in the end, and then Mike Timlin fielded the bunt to win Game 6 and have Toronto's first World Series title in 1992.
Love that. There's a great name, Mike Timlin. I remember him in my lifetime, obviously, the setup pitcher for the Red Sox. Obviously, I don't think he was probably the third guy down Cito's list. It was Tom Henke, the closer, Dwayne Ward's setup guy, and then Timlin would be in there somewhere. This game was in the bottom of the 10th, though, I believe, was it not?
The 11th.
The 11th. So in extra innings in an NL ballpark, I mean, you're gonna, use some different guys. And I remember, seeing in the highlights, not live, obviously, but Otis Nixon goes to bunt, which I thought was stupid to do. I mean, the guy's fast. He's a great leadoff hitter, but he's, whatever.
We'll get into talks about our thoughts on bunting as the season goes on, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. But yeah, anyways, I have my thoughts on specific plays. We won the World Series, though, man. Joe Carter caught the ball on first base and leapt up and down. And I wonder if he'll do any jumping in the next season.
Let's get to that next season. After the 92 season, the Blue Jays let Dave Winfield and longtime closer Tom Henke go, but they did re-sign 2 free agents. They signed Paul Molitor, who he'll have a big year, spoiler alert. And then we also had, we got Dave Stewart from the Oakland A's. So that's how the season started. The Jays, just coming off the World Series win, was good again. They had 7 All-Stars that year, Riley. 7.
Do you have the list of those players right
I
here?
do, yes.
I'm going to guess. So Stuart Molitor.
Yep. Well, Stewart wasn't, but John Molitor was.
Oh, Dave Stewart wasn't, really?
Yep.
So for pitchers, who would have been? Was Dwayne Ward.
Dwayne Ward was an All-Star that year.
As a relief pitcher. Yeah. Maybe John Olerud. John Olerud was I don't know. Give me the names of those 7 guys.
Riley,
I want to hear it.
It's Whamco. You remember Whamco from the 93 team?
Yeah.
All 5 of them were All-Stars that year. Devin White, Roberto Alomar, John Olerud, Joe Carter, and Paul Molitor. All of them were All-Stars.
And then there was another pitcher. So Dwayne Ward and
Pat Henkin.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't get talked about enough. He was a very steady Eddie pitcher and an All-Star, obviously, in 93.
Yep. So not only that, the Jays were cruising through the first half of the regular season. They were just like, you know what? We're just going to go out and acquire another Hall of Famer. And at the trade deadline that year, the Blue Jays sent out a trade to acquire Ricky Henderson. I think he's MLB's all-time stolen base leader, Ricky Henderson, to hit leadoff for this team.
You think, or you know that he's the all-time steal leader?
He's got to be, right? Yeah.
Henderson, dude. There's a lot of records that won't be broken in baseball. I can assure you that Henderson leads, I think it's Lou Brock, by an astronomical number, dude. Ricky Henderson has godly numbers. Like, if I was to play 162 games of T-ball, I wouldn't have as many steals as Henderson has, man.
So the Blue Jays had 6 All-Stars in their lineup. You want to talk about a murderer's row of hitters. Try pitching to this 1993 Toronto Blue Jays team. Like, that stuff was insane. They cruised to a 95-67 record, just 1 less win than the year before, but they finished 7 games ahead of the New York Yankees, winning their 3rd straight division title. The Jays went on to beat the White Sox, Frank Thomas and the White Sox, 4-2 in the ALCS. And then they went to the World Series yet again, this time facing the Philadelphia Phillies.
That Phillies team.
Yeah, they had some guys on that team. Now, a lot of Blue Jays fans, when looking back and talk about the past, you talk a lot more about this 93 team than the 92 team. I think just because of how dominant this 93 team was with all the star power they had in there. The big game in that series was game 3. Or no, it was game 4. Game 4 played under a slight rain in which the Blue Jays came back from a 14-9 deficit and won that game 15-14. I think those 29 runs scored in that game of the World Series is still a record to this day.
It'll never be broken.
Well, I don't want to say never, but it's going to take a lot in order for that to be broken.
Man, it would take some stuff, man. Someone's really going to have to scrape their chin up and keep pitching for that to happen again.
Mm-hmm. So huge momentum swing to take that game. Jays took a 3-1 series lead on that. In game 6, the Blue Jays took a 5-1 lead. Everything's coming up great. We got a 4-run lead. The Jays are going to win back-to-back World Series, but the Jays gave up 5 runs in the 7th inning to end up trailing 6-5. So started to look a little gloomy, didn't feel good. We get to the 9th inning. Philadelphia brings in their closer. Mitch Wild Thing Williams was the guy. And he comes in and he's a little wild. You could tell he had good stuff, but he couldn't hit the strike zone routinely. And I don't remember exactly how the inning went, but I remember Ricky Henderson got on. I remember.
Oh, here, timeout. I will tell you.
Perfect. Do that.
Henderson walked, I believe, on 4 pitches.
Classic Wild Thing.
I mean, yeah. And if Mitch Williams, if you like, had probably the wonkiest delivery ever. As he's a southpaw, he's a left-handed pitcher, and he basically would finish his throw and end up to the front right of the mound.
Right. Like if a scout saw that today, they would throw up.
Oh yeah, just Wild Thing, right? I don't know how Devon White got out, whether it was a flat or a strikeout or what.
Right.
And then our boy Paul Molitor laces a base hit up the middle.
Mm-hmm.
No, sorry. Got to go back batting order. Hold on. Henderson walks.
Yep.
Devon White out. Alomar out. So 2 outs. Runner on first. Molitor base hit. And then Jesse, I'll leave it to you.
Don't leave it to me. The count gets to 2-2. There's a great documentary on this Joe Carter at bat. You can go through. You can find it on YouTube or whatnot. But I'm just going to give you a call from the great Tom Cheek. And now, I can't imitate Tom Cheek, but the count went to 2-2, and here's what Tom Cheek said. A swing and a belt, left field, way back, Blue Jays win it. The Blue Jays are World Series champions as Joe Carter hits a 3-run home run in the 9th inning, and the Blue Jays have repeated as World Series champions. Touch them all, Joe. You'll never hit a bigger home run in your life. Chills, man. Absolute chills. Just think.
You know what? I haven't looked it up, but I know the other call probably better. I love it. I love Tom Cheek as a Blue Jays fan, but I love the other one.
What was the other one?
Now the 2-2. Well, hit down the left field line, way back in, gone.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know who the classic announcer for the World Series and playoff baseball at the time. Have no idea what his name is. Heard him countless times though in broadcast.
He must have been the NBC guy that they had calling the game and stuff. Fun little fact there too. That was the 2nd time ever a team has hit a walk-off home run to win the World Series. Someone in Pittsburgh did it in the late 60s, I believe. Was the first guy. So
it's blasphemous. Like Bill Mazeroski.
Mazeroski, that was it.
Bill Mazeroski in 1957. 57.
I think it was the 60s, but still, like what Joe Carter did in that moment was what every kid who is a baseball fan dreams of doing, hitting a home run to give your team the win, to win the World Series. Like, I can't imagine what that must have felt like.
1961, I think, Jesse, Bill Mazeroski.
There you go.
Sorry, I wasn't even listening to you. I'm sure you said something insightful. I was just thinking about that home run too.
That's all good. So Jays were really good. In the regular season that year, John Olerud, Paul Molitor, and Roberto Alomar finished 1, 2, and 3 in the AL batting crown. An absolute monstrous team. Probably the best the Blue Jays have ever had.
I agree. But
now let's move on. For
sure, man. One more thing of that 1993 series, because I've watched that. I don't know if it's ESPN or whatever. But first of all, you had Mulder hitting the way he did. and in that World Series, he played third base, first base, and DH. He was such a versatile player. And obviously, I don't know if you said it or not, won the MVP, World Series MVP. He was just electric. Sadly, though, from a baseball guy first, the best player of that World Series was Lenny Dykstra.
Yep.
Lenny Dykstra he had five home runs in that World Series. And Kurt Schilling just about threw his arm up. Philly really put up a fight, but we had just a monster club, man. 93 was a big year.
So we're going to move on to 1994 now. Expectations were still sky high because how could they not? You just won back-to-back World Series. But the Jays kind of slumped. They finished 55-60, recording a third-place finish, all before the player strike happened. So labor issues even in the 90s as well. Joe Carter, Paul Molitor, and John Olerud were still having great years, but Juan Guzman, one of your guys there, he actually slumped considerably from his first 3 years there. He had an ERA over 5 in there, but the Jays started to develop a nice young core here. There were 3 young players in particular. Alex Gonzalez, Sean Greene, and Carlos Delgado started to show much promise for the future. So we move on again into 1995 here. The Blue Jays got out of the player strike. Pat Gillick, the longtime Blue Jays general manager, resigned and handed the reins over to Gord Ash. So we're now into another era of Blue Jays baseball. And Riley, what are your thoughts here of the late 90s, early 2000s teams?
The late 90s, early 2000s. I looked at names, I looked at players. It's a fun era. It's not necessarily a successful era of Blue Jays baseball, but it's one certainly longtime Jays fans like you and I remember. I mean, you spoke of Sean Greene, one of our first real outfield stars of the post World Series, kind of in the World Series hangover era, showing promise, and Delgado on first, and then Alex Gonzalez at short. Later on, we got 2 more outfielders, Jose Cruz and Shannon Stewart, a couple of other more great names in there. I remember Shannon Stewart, great. And Roger Clemens. This is when Roger Clemens, who claims that he hated it in Toronto, pitched for the Blue Jays.
Came to the Blue Jays in 97, and he was amazing when he was here. Roger Clemens, who, as we talked about in our Hall of Fame episode, should be in the Hall of Fame. Not much to say about him. We know he did steroids, and if you actually look back on his career, it was probably his time in Toronto when he did start to take steroids. At least that's what some of the assumption is. But the Blue Jays just weren't a real good team around him. They had good pieces here or there, but Roger Clemens was doing his thing, and no one else could really compete up to him. So after 2 years, they let go of Roger Clemens. They traded him away.
We did have young pitchers in there starting out. Chris Carpenter.
He was drafted.
Yep. And then one more famously and notably after Carpenter, Roy Halladay, I believe in 1997.
Seems right.
And then another kind of fun position player, Jesse. So let's talk about batting stances for a second.
Okay.
We see, certain batting stances that are very, recognizable. I like Nomar Garcia Parra. I love how he kind of fiddles with his gloves and things like that.
You've always been a big Nomar guy. I know that.
You see open batting stances, closed batting stances. That has to do with your feet either being closed off to the plate or opened up towards the field. Third baseman Tony Batista.
Oh, yes, the very open stance.
A very open stance, man. He was 180 degrees facing the dugouts. His legs were just, that's like me doing the podcast like this. Hey, Jesse, how's it going? He's just as much open as you can get.
Yeah, if you're a current baseball fan, check out the Reds and Aristides Aquino. It's kind of a lot like that, the very big, wide open stance. And Tony Batista mashed. I think he hit 40 home runs in one of these seasons there.
He did mash, man. He was a great slugger. Him and Raul Mondesi, I believe, at a dark time were pretty comparable. One infield, one out. Another thing too that I just found out, was drafted as a catcher, Josh Phelps.
Yeah.
I did not know that. I couldn't tell you he was a catcher, man. I just thought of him as a first base DH.
Yeah, a lot like Carlos Delgado was drafted as a catcher too, right?
Really?
Yeah, so you see a lot of this. In fact, I think he caught for his first season before they moved him over to first base and stuff as well. The early 2000s, the late 90s I don't know a ton about him. Rogers Communications bought the team in the year 2000, and it wasn't shortly long after that before they changed the team name to Rogers Center instead of Skydome. I think that might have been like 2003, 2004 they did that.
Yeah.
Carlos Delgado had become a star. He was hitting really good. He had a 4 home run game in there somewhere. Yeah, not a lot. The team really didn't get anywhere until 2002. The JP Ricciardi era here.
Yeah. Vernon Wells also was picked up in that era. Not a superstar yet, but another guy who obviously showed promise.
Yeah, 2002, Vernon Wells would have been 23 years old, but he did have a 100 RBI season, so that was really good. This was the team. Buck Martinez was who we talked about in our announcers episode. He was coaching. He got fired about a third way through the season as the Jays started with a 20-33 record. He was placed by Carlos Tosca, who was the third base coach and he was coaching third base at the time. They did go above 500 to finish with a record of 78-84. This was Roy Halladay's first year coming on. He was relied as the team ace, and he rose to the challenge of being the team's top pitcher. He went 19-7 with a 2.93 ERA. So this was the start of Roy Halladay. And a lot of Blue Jays fans our age, this was kind of the era of Blue Jays baseball that we kind of got into, and we started getting into there. Carlos Delgado was still really good, but they finished 78-84, third in the division.
Yeah, our platoon pieces really weren't. We had like Dave Berg and Chris Woodward.
Yeah, who's now managing in Texas.
Yeah, a better manager than player. Not a great bullpen. Bullpens win or lose you games, especially if you're the Toronto Blue Jays. I'll let you kind of talk about more of the early 2000s before I get into my favorite players. And because there's a huge list of them, because this is the era. You talk more, Jesse. I mean, you being, I think, 3 years older than I am, you say 2002 was the start. I'm going to kind of move it up maybe to 2004, 2005.
Right. So I'll just touch a little bit on these players here. In 2002, Eric Hinsky won Rookie of the Year. So he was part of this young core. And the Blue Jays kind of had Delgado. They had a young Vernon Wells. They threw in Eric Hinsky. They thought they had this nice team coming. The 2003 season came up. After a poor April, the team had its most successful month ever in May. Carlos Delgado, monster again. Followed closely, Vernon Wells was really good again. But they couldn't pitch that well. Roy Halladay was awesome. This was his first Cy Young Award season when he went 22-7 with a 3.2 ERA. And Shannon Stewart, he just traded him away that year. So we got some stuff. Delgado was second in voting for the American League MVP, which was the answer to one of our trivia questions earlier this year. And that was the season we acquired Ted Lilly from the Oakland A's. So some of these core names we might remember growing up started to come into piece into 2003. I'm going to move on to 2004 now, unless there's anything else you want to add about that season there.
No, I got Ted Lilly's autograph on a baseball glove somewhere. That
no way. Could
be in a dumpster. Yeah, wait, man.
You should find that. That's pretty sick.
This is long gone.
So 2004, the season was a disappointing year for the Blue Jays right from the beginning. They started 0-8 at home, never had a lengthy winning streak, and much of that was to do was Vernon Wells got hurt, Carlos Delgado got hurt, Roy Halladay got hurt. Ted Lilly and Miguel Batista is a name you might remember. They were actually pretty okay. Pat Henkin was a veteran now at this point, still pitching on this team. He ended up retiring that year. We saw some Blue Jays names you might remember. Jason Frazier, Josh Towers appeared at the team this year.
Yeah.
And I think this was the year. Yeah, John Gibbons actually became manager for this year for the first time. So a different core. We're now starting the John Gibbons era in 2004. So I'm sure you remember that team a little bit, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, do I know that team? Yeah, man. We had, do we have Orlando Hudson yet?
I think so. I believe he might have been on that team at that point.
Yeah. And then obviously Jason Worth, and I think Reed Johnson and Frank Catalanato enter here pretty soon.
Yep. Those were fun guys. They were
loved Frank Catalanato, man. One of my favorite names. And Rios hasn't entered the chat yet, eh?
Alex Rios was young. I think that was his first year, along with Russ Adams and Gabe Gross, who
both of them were poopy prospects, to put it lightly.
Well, Russ Adams, I remember he hit a home run. I think it was against Minnesota that gave me hope and be like, why can't Russ Adams do this all the time? But that's beside the point there.
No, yeah, I know things that could have been like you talk about upside downside. If we were to do this Blue Jays podcast, with that era, then we would not be so high on Russ Adams.
2005 came. That was the year Rogers officially changed their name to the Rogers Center. In spring training of that year, Gabe Gross actually led spring training in home runs. So the Jays were thinking, right, we have something in this guy. This guy's going to be part of our core. The Jays were actually going pretty good. Aaron Hill started up that year. His breakout started to happen. That was the year Roy Halladay was having another Cy Young season, but he was hit by that comebacker by Kevin Mensch and was shut down. Like Roy Halladay was having his best season of his career in 2025. So once that happened, the Jays kind of went a little down. But Josh Towers in the second half of that year actually had an ERA under 3, so there were some glowing signs here.
Wow.
And Jays
really?
management at that point started talking about, we have money, we're investing in this team, we can start adding these free agents. So there was all this talk from the team, and we were expecting a big offseason at the end of 2005.
Yeah, and just kind of got better with selecting platoon players. Joining Aaron Hill, a middle infielder, fan favorite. I know everyone I talk to, John McDonald, great. Never too hot with the bat, but one of the most sure-handed middle infielders I've ever got to watch.
Johnny Mac made some plays at shortstop that, especially on the hard AstroTurf in Toronto too, that you just don't see infielders make, man. He was something special with the glove. And
couple more names to add to the bullpen: a young Brandon League, Justin Spire, Scott Downs.
I think Sean Markham that year as well.
Sean Markham,
5 relief.
Dustin McGowan.
So these were all young guys, or Blue Jays fans of our age at least. We remember these guys. We had hopes for these guys. Brandon League, I think, threw 100, or at least he learned to throw like 100 later.
League was a flamethrower for sure. He was setting up Fraser at one point. I know that. I don't know if it was a lack of control, but something held him down for sure.
So let's move on to that offseason then. Management has talked about, we're going to be aggressive. We're going to add additions to this team. So before the 2006 season, the Blue Jays signed B.J. Ryan for 5 years and a ton of money. And the year after, we signed A.J. Burnett. Jays also made trades for Troy Gloss, who you mentioned as one of your favorite Blue Jays. Lyle Overbay, who was one of my favorite Blue Jays of all time. And this team started to come together. Aaron Hill was still productive. This was Adam Lynn's breakout season, I believe. So with Alex Rios still there, Vernon Wells still there, Roy Halladay, this team actually had 5 All-Stars that year. So it was actually coming pretty good. Shea Hillenbrand was on that team that year. He was shipped out because he got in an argument with management. So we got Jeremy Accardo into this team. So another good piece. The Jays actually had 87 wins that year. And that was the first time as a Blue Jays fan in that decade that you really felt like this team is good. If this team could get into the playoffs, they could do something. But that was the time the Red Sox and Yankees were just way too good. And the Blue Jays were never going to catch them. So 87 wins. We ended up actually having more wins that year than the World Series champion St. Louis Cardinals did that year, because they only had 86. But hey, what you going to do?
Yeah, I definitely have 2006 Blue Jays that's my team of the decade, not necessarily based off skill, but based off against lovable guys you like, guys you'd love to have watched. Doc and AJ Burnett as the aces. That's great. I loved AJ Burnett in Florida, and coming to Toronto, he was my kind of guy. Threw a great high fastball, beat you velocity every time. Catcher guy you didn't mention, the Elvis Molina brother, Benji on that team.
Benji was great.
Fun fact, and I think you know this already, hit for the cycle, one of the slowest base runners of all time, hitting a triple in Boston. He wasn't with Toronto at this time. It's just a funny story because, this guy Molinas are notoriously slow and catchers are notoriously slow. So add these two things together and you get 3 of the slowest brothers on the face of the earth. A great guy to watch though, man.
Yeah, let's try to move through these next things very quick here. It was that offseason the Blue Jays signed Frank Thomas, who we've talked about, and we re-signed Vernon Wells to a massive 5-year extension. So obviously Vernon Wells' play kind of hit the bed after he signed that extension, but I thought it was worth it at the time. I'm going to give you some of my favorite players I really liked during that era of Blue Jays baseball. Adam Lind, Lyle Overbay, which I mentioned, but Casey Jansen, I want to throw some love to him. He was a closer for a while. He was elite. He kind of threw that cutter before people really threw a cutter. And I really like seeing Casey Jansen there.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'll give you a couple. Shout out Canadians. We're Canadians here. We'll give you some Canadian names that played during this time. Corey Koski was the third baseman, I believe, in 2004. We had Scott Richmond.
Yeah. I've read his books, actually.
Oh, really? He's an author?
Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet. I never knew that. That's what I got for Canadians right there. And then other fun names that Jesse might have forgot about. See if I can trick you. Brad Wilkerson.
I remember that. Yeah.
Do you? Curtis Thigpen.
Oh yeah, he was like the first break catcher prospect.
Yeah. Hector Luna.
A big beefy third baseman, was he not?
I think he was pretty thick. I know he was an infielder for sure. And socks up Joe Inglet.
Yeah, Joe Inglet was good. Little scrappy guy. The Blue Jays have always loved these little scrappy guys. Joe Inglet was one of them.
Yeah. And my last Canadian before I let you move on, which I missed because I can't read, Matt Stairs. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Who I think he's led home runs by a Canadian. He either belongs to Justin Morneau or Matt Stairs, or maybe Joey Votto, but he's up there.
It's one of the three.
Yeah. I just want to say, fuck you, Brian Tallett. I never liked watching Brian Tallett play. I remember leaving the Rogers Center one day after Brian Tallett blew a 4-run lead for this team. The whole freaking Go Train station was saying, Brian Tallett ruined my day. And we were just chanting it on the Go Train. So for a young kid going through that, there's that there. Let's move on a little bit.
Yeah.
We got to get through this next part pretty quickly here. I'm going to take us all the way into 2009, which is when we call it the Jose Bautista era. Alex Anthopoulos had taken over the team at this time, and the Jays were kind of still in mediocrity. We hadn't made the playoffs since that 92 season, but Jose Bautista became the real bright spot. We had just traded away Roy Halladay for the package that we've talked about last episode, and we didn't really know what we were doing. We're kind of going to a rebuild year. Bautista comes over, he goes through a swing change, and boom, he's hitting 54 home runs. So I thought that was pretty grand. He has another better year in 2011 where he goes through and he hits really well as well. Edwin Encarnacion was on this team, but he still, remember we called him E5 because he was playing third base and he couldn't make a throw across the diamond and people were calling for heads. Jays actually released Edwin Encarnacion that year. He went to Oakland, but Jays got him back a week later. So thank goodness.
Man, that's that's like a high school breakup right there.
Right?
Oh yeah, man. This is where we thought we were getting our next big thing in Ricky Romero, who was a big thing for his first few seasons.
He had 2 or 3 really good years, Ricky Romero did. In 2012, the team ditched those black jerseys and went with the jerseys we kind of see now. Put the blue back in Blue Jays. We got the big white with the maple leaf and stuff. I know I was really happy to see that. I'm just going to try to keep moving quick here. We're going to go into 2013. That's when the Jays had their massive trade with the Marlins that really shaked up this team and would help define how this team is going to be in the mid-2010s. We traded for Josh Johnson, Jose Reyes, Mark Burley, Emilio Bonifacio, and John Buck. And then later that offseason, we also acquired Cy Young winner R.A. Dickey. You have any
and his catcher, Josh Tolley.
Oh, yeah. Him.
Noted. Just... and that's important, eh? Great catcher and everything like that. For me, it was really just another great era of guys that I liked. Maybe I liked less pitchers than you in this era. I wasn't a big fan of Reza Chimsky.
Mark Sapchinsky, Scrabble as we call him.
Scrabble, yeah. I wasn't a big fan of him, or Aaron Loop, or Brett Cecil.
Yeah,
and they're all lefties. They're all lefties.
Yeah. Jays have had some long-time bullpen guys throughout that era there. Just going to keep moving forward here. In 2014, that's when Edwin finally put it together. Edwin got hot. He had 16 home runs in the month of May. The Jays got hot, then they kind of struggled, but you could tell the signs were there. Bautista was still mashing. Edwin was doing his thing. Jose Reyes was providing a solid shortstop. So you could see the pieces were coming together, but the Jays still weren't quite there. So that offseason in 2014, the Blue Jays made a trade with Oakland, sending out Brett Lawrie, who was a fan favorite, a Canadian. People loved Brett Lawrie. We sent him a handful of prospects, including Kendall Graveman, sent him out to Oakland, and we acquired Josh Donaldson. That's when this thing's really started to come together for this team.
It's starting to get real now, man. Mm-hmm. It's starting to get real.
In 2015, I remember the Jays would lose a lot of one-run games, and then games they won, they would dominate. Bautista, Edwin, Donaldson were doing the thing. Marco Estrada, after we traded Adam Lynn for him, was coming out. He was having a breakout year. We signed Russell Martin that offseason before to be our catcher. He was a stabling force back there. Devin Travis, a guy we got, young guy from the Tigers. He was coming in. He was hitting towards that bottom of the order. He was having clutch hits. Michael Saunders, another Canadian lefty. He made an all-star game at some point in his Blue Jays career. So as though the team was only around 500 through the start. And actually, funny story about that 2015 team. They went into Washington. They played a doubleheader. In game one, Anibal Sanchez threw 7 1/3 no-hit innings against the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays lost 2-0. The team was defeated because they had to face Max Scherzer in the game later that night. So Kevin Pillar and the boys, they got together and they just had a nap. They literally took a nap. They woke up and they pounded Max Scherzer. Kevin Pillar had his first multi-home run game that day, and the Blue Jays just went soaring from that point on. So it was kind of the trend. They just needed one nap, recharge the batteries, and the Blue Jays were here. That trade deadline this year, they went out, they acquired one of my favorite players of all time, Troy Tulowitzki, Ben Revere, and David Price. And that Blue Jays team from that trade deadline probably rivals the 1993 team as one of the best Blue Jays teams ever.
When they got, I mean, Price is great. And that those are all great. I personally, watching batting stance, his kind of baseball persona, Ben Revere just looked like he had so much fun out there. I mean, he was fast. He was a hitting wizard, for a slap hitter. Just probably, low-key one of my favorite players on that team. He was just so much fun.
Jays go into the playoffs that year. They faced Texas in the ALDS. We know how that went. We got down 2-0, and we thought we finally broke the playoff curse. After 15 years, we're going to get swept, but they came back. And then we all know what happens in Game 5 of the ALDS against Texas. We had Jose Bautista and his big bat flip off Sam Dyson to put us into the next round of the playoffs. So that was great. We went on to play Kansas City in the ALCS that year, which I still think the Jays really should have won that. But Kansas City, they were just the team of destiny, I guess, with their elite bullpen and their great outfields. And, Jays just couldn't do it. But
you know what, man? At the end of the day, we have Elvis Andrus to thank to getting us that far.
You sure do. So thank you, Elvis Andrus. 2016 was, again, very similar. The Jays in 2016 were a little different. Their offense, yes, was still good. They still had Bautista. They still had Edwin. They still had Donaldson. But they relied a lot more on their pitching. Did you know the Jays only used 7 starting pitchers that whole season?
That is extremely lucky.
One of them was Drew Hutchison, who we literally just gave a spot start to just because I don't even think we needed to. So he was one of them. And we used Marcus Stroman, Aaron Sanchez, Marco Estrada, Jay Happ, and we traded for Francisco Liriano at the trade deadline that year.
I like the look of that staff.
Yeah, that was the best year they all had by far. I remember that was Aaron Sanchez when he was just dominant. He was elite that year. So his slider and his curveball just clicked. And that was Aaron Sanchez's best year by far.
Was that his coming off a 3 solid ERA?
Mm-hmm. I think he was either high 2s or low 3s.
I think it was 3 on the nose or 2.99.
So that was kind of that era of Blue Jays baseball. That's the one a lot of us are kind of familiar with. We're going to move on now, and we're going to hammer this out quickly because it's the era we're currently in, right? It's the Vlad Junior Era, as I like to call it, where we have this young core, Vlad, Bo Bichette, where we've added to it now with Hyun-Jin Ryu, with George Springer. We can throw in Robbie Ray and what Marcus Semien did last year into that mix as well. It's just, this is the one we're going to talk a lot more about as we go. This is the era that's still kind of developing. So we're still kind of telling its own stories. I don't think we need to touch too much on this.
No, man, the story's we kind of had our own little segments here. The story's still writing itself. Mm-hmm. This I wouldn't call it the Vlad era because I love Lourdes and Bo too. But it's how about this? We'll call it the Sons of
the Blue Jays 2.0.
The Blue Jays 2.0 got a lot of young, great talent. The sons of great players.
Right. So I just want to give a shout out to 3 players that were here that I didn't really care for much. Billy McKinney, Derek Fisher, and Tanner Roark. Those were guys that wore Blue Jays jerseys that they're gone, they're past, but they were part of the struggle where they're trying to Blue Jays in between the Jose Bautista era and the Blue Jays 2.0 era here.
Well, if you get 3, I get 3. So we're gonna go shout out Colby Rasmus.
Yeah, a few years earlier, but yeah.
Who I assume is one of the best golfers of all time with his swing. Well, if you're going for that era, that's fine. I was gonna go back in time.
Do it.
Frank Catalanato and Reed Johnson, man. 2 of my favorite outfielders, man. They weren't particularly great, but I just watched them a lot. And man, if you watch something enough, you're gonna like it. I don't know if I had Stockholm syndrome with this Blue Jays team or what, but I really liked the mid-2000s Jays. They were lovable losers.
Yeah, give me your batting order that you had drawn up of, I think it was the 2006 team.
Hold on,
run down that list there.
I will, because it's so much fun, man. I don't know if this was the actual order. I assume leading off and playing right field was Alex Rios.
Okay.
2 spot, Aaron Hill was an All-Star in 06 or 07.
I don't remember. Definitely one of them.
I think 2 spot you give to Vernon Wells.
Yeah.
3 spot Troy Gloss. Then you go Shea Hillenbrand, Lyle Overbay, Benji Molina, Aaron Hill, Catalanato, and 9 spot will be Johnny Mack.
Yeah, sure.
Again, and 2 out of every 5 starts, you're either going with Doc or AJ Burnett. I could have picked 2007. The only change was I was taking away a couple guys. Would have gave me Frank Thomas though.
Yeah.
If I could cheat and do 2006 with a slight 7, I would change Hillenbrand out for Frank Thomas. But what can you do?
So it's not too bad. There's a lot of, I hope we brought up a lot of names you can remember as Blue Jays fans. And if you're a newer Blue Jays fan just kind of following along, I hope this segment kind of gave you a little bit of history about our past and where things kind of stand as a franchise. So when we get into this story or this season, you can kind of hear and understand where we're coming from as Blue Jays fans, how things were and how things are going to continue to be. So I think anything else you want to add about that segment there?
No, kind of going off what you said, if you are a new Jays fan, I hope the names didn't you. If you're curious to look anyone up, Baseball Reference is great. Even if you're curious, avid baseball guy like myself and Jesse, I spent a lot of time on Baseball Reference today, and I didn't even say all the names I wanted to, man. We'd be another 50 minutes. I had a pile of names. It's just so much fun, there's so many players in baseball, and the MLB to the AAA for guys who are average players, it's a revolving door. So you get to see so many different guys come in and out, especially at the time, like Toronto, that wanted to give different people sample sizes.
Right. I think it's just, there's a lot of names, a lot of people, a lot of history. I'm excited for what comes next. Let's get to it.
Yeah, let's not live in the past too much, but I am a nostalgic person.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have a really quick, Riley, we can hammer this out. And if you guys are watching, want to leave your answers down below, you can do that as well. Riley, I'm going to throw you 5 really quick would you rather questions, Blue Jays related.
I love this. Yeah.
Okay. Would you rather stand in the box against Nate Pearson or Ken Giles?
Oh, man.
You need to get a hit off one.
If I had to hit off one,
yeah.
Can I walk against one of them?
No, you got to try to put bat on ball, get a hit.
Well, damn, I guess it's going to be Giles, and I know he's going to throw it over the plate.
It'd be kind of terrifying just sitting there with Nate Pearson if he's not.
I'm just going to close my eyes. Yeah, I'm going to get plunked by Pearson.
All right. Would you rather sit down and have a beer with John Gibbons or Mark Burley?
Oh, man, Gibby for sure. Nothing against Burley, one of my favorites of all time, even when he was with the Sox, the White Sox, that is. But I'm gonna, maybe dabble into some Texas whiskey with Mr. Gibbons.
Hey, you could probably share some fun stories, and you could probably get into a bunch of shenanigans as well.
Oh my God, yeah, for sure.
Would you rather attend a bongo concert by Charlie Montoyo or have a Star Wars marathon with R.A. Dickey?
Oh man, I love Star Wars. I'm hanging out with Dickey.
Yeah, Dickey is a classic big Star Wars guy. I think his walkout song was even the Imperial March.
Imperial March, yeah, man.
So that would be fun. If you're into the Star Wars stuff, that would be really great.
That's a no-brainer.
Would you rather not be able to choose your own walkout song or have to sing OK Blue Jays on the Jumbotron during every single game?
Oh man, I'm choosing my own walkout song, man. If I was good enough to play, I'm a good enough singer. I'll sing OK Blue Jays.
What would your walkout song be?
Depends on the year, man. Right now, I don't know, man. Something by Green Day or Our Lady Peace. You're putting me on the spot.
I am putting you on the spot. Yeah.
Big Dumb Rocket by Our Lady Peace.
Perfect. Love it. And the last one I have for you. Would you rather throw out an absolute terrible first pitch at a ball game, or would you rather get caught picking your nose on the Jumbotron?
Man, I'm getting caught picking my nose on the Jumbotron. Ain't no way I'm going out to, I would rather, both are embarrassing, but for me, I'm throwing that ball over the plate and I'm coming out and shaking hands with whoever's catching that ball and saying, hey, nice throw there, Riley. People are going to laugh at me. I think laugh with me and laugh at me in both scenarios, but I'm throwing that ball over the damn plate.
All right, perfect. Well, that's about it for that segment there. We do have trivia before we get out of here. Riley, last week I asked you if you could name the Toronto Blue Jay who struck out 6 times in a game. Do you remember what your answer was?
My answer was Alex Gonzalez.
And you nailed it, dude. It was in I forget what year, 2001 maybe? But Alex Gonzalez did strike out 6 times in a game. Randall Gritchett, Colby Erasmus, and Teoscar Hernandez were your other options. Didn't happen to any of them. Shout out to Ryan on Twitter, who also guessed Alex Gonzalez. Good for you, man. I'm glad you got that. Are you ready for today's trivia question?
Yeah, let's give her a go, man. Again, another hard single up the middle of my last at bat, trying to keep that average up.
All right, so we talked about a lot of names from the past and a lot of old Blue Jays. And I want to know, can you name the Blue Jay all-time win leader as a reliever? So I'll say that again here. Can you name
I heard you.
Oh, no, okay.
Wow. Who is the all-time Blue Jays leader as a
relief pitcher? Yes.
Man.
And again, if you're watching on YouTube right now, leave a comment below. This one's a little tougher than some of our other ones. It's really going to make you think about Blue Jays in the present and Blue Jays in the past. So let me know what you think with an answer.
I'm gonna go just Dwayne Ward, because longevity is an important stat in this, and he pitched and was successful. I'm going Dwayne Ward.
All right. I won't tell you the answer here. We'll tell you the answer on the next episode. But I do want to shout out. I'm going to give you some Blue Jays names, and I'm going to tell you where they finished in this list.
Oh, no. Okay.
So Brett Cecil had 13 wins as a relief pitcher.
So where's he, 40th?
He's 16th.
Yeah, okay. Good for him.
Steve Delabar, Ryan Tepera, Joe Biagini, and Aaron Loop all had 12.
Delabar! How could I forget? Supply teacher.
Moving up the list a little bit, Casey Jansen had 21. He was 13th all time. David Wells had 17 as a reliever. He's 12th all time. And Casey Jansen, who I mentioned earlier, he has 21 wins as a reliever. He's 9th. So I'll leave out the top 5. If I haven't said them, then your answer might still be up there. We'll see. But yeah, tune in next week to figure out what the answer is then.
Well, as much as I wanted to say Jeremy Accardo, I just don't think it's him.
Okay. Well, we'll find out next week.
I certainly know it's not Kevin Gregg.
That'll do it for our episode today. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed our look into some of the great Blue Jays teams and eras of its past. It's always good to know where you came from, so you can help tell the story of where you're going next. Make sure you check out our friends over at Leafs and Lads to fill you in on all things Toronto Blue Jays. Follow or Toronto Maple Leafs, sorry. Follow us on Twitter at BudsJays and send us an email at budsandbluejays@hotmail.com. Any last words, Riley?
No, this was a fun episode. I definitely had the most fun doing this. It's a blast from the past, man. I definitely said names that, you hadn't heard. You gave me names that I certainly hadn't heard in a long time. We had a lot of fun. The Would You Rather was a nice thing.
I'm going to throw more of that as we go.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's a nice little touch, Jesse. And that'd be good for other people to really want to hear what other people have to say about the Would You Rather, especially the first pitch in the pick of your nose one, because I really don't think I'm alone for that. Like, as someone who's played the game of baseball, if you get on a big league hill, no matter in what scenario, you want to throw the ball over the plate.
Absolutely. Last thing you want is to be like Carly Rae Jepsen or Jay-Z, where you just throwing the ball right to the backstop right away, and it makes the rounds on Twitter and on YouTube. And
dude, I might just throw in, I'd rather pick my nose and eat it. Throw the eat it part in there too, man. It's a big deal.
All right, well, that's it. We're heading out for today. We'll see everyone next week.
Thanks, guys.